This is the Daily Tech News for February 3rd, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on some context of those stories, and just all out try to help each other understand this stuff.
Today, in part 2 of our interview, CTA head Gary Shapiro talks with why failing is good for innovation and your emails.
I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Robb Dunewood.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. OpenAI announced a new agent called Deep Research. If that sounds familiar, hold on a second. It's an agent that uses generative model tools, filters, and training to be good at a specific subset of tasks rather than a generalized model for everything. It is similar to and has the same name as Gemini's Deep Research function, which launched on Google December 11th. OpenAI's version of Deep Research is designed for, quote, people who do intensive knowledge work in areas like finance, science, policy, and engineering, and need thorough, precise, and reliable research. And also, it's meant to help making purchases that typically require careful research, like cars, appliances, and furniture. So pros can use it for their actual work needs, and you and I can use it for consumer needs. You can select the agent in the composer when you're in ChatGPT, and then enter a query and any files you want to have it consider, spreadsheets, PDFs, anything. It works pretty much on the query end, just like any query. OpenAI says answers take a little longer, though, between 5 and 30 minutes to complete, and are text only right now at launch. A side panel documents its progress so you can see how it is reasoning. OpenAI says that images and data visualization should come along soon, as well as the ability to give more access to internal resources and subscription-based services. So if you're an accountant and you've got like an internal database that you have to log into, stuff like that, you might not be able to get into it as easy yet, but in the future, they're going to try to figure out how to hook you up with that. Outputs also come with citations and documentation of where the answer came from, so you can do some double checking. It uses the O3 model, which is a reasoning model. That's a model that uses what's called chain of thought to iterate on answers multiple times until it's confident it has generated the right one. Chain of thought models like O3 combine the predictive nature of large language models, which just try to tell you what text, character, or image pixel should come next, with machine learning's reinforcement learning, which tries to say, let's teach the model what a cat looks like and what is not a cat. Deep Research is further optimized to be good at web browsing and data analysis. So it's got that chain of thought, but it's also got a very specific task of like, you don't have to be good at everything in the world, just be good at web browsing and data analysis. OpenAI has been making clear what it thinks the limitations of its models are when they launch them. The company says Deep Research may struggle to tell rumors from fact sometimes, often fails to convey uncertainty, so it'll say it's certain about something when maybe it wasn't, and it can make formatting errors in reports and citations. OpenAI does say that these errors are all at a notably lower rate than its current models, so if you use the current models and you're used to what it gets wrong, it should be more accurate than that, and they think a lot of it will improve with usage. Deep Research is available for ChatGPT Pro users. Those are the folks who pay $200 a month, and there's a limit of 100 queries a month. It will eventually come to users on the Plus and the Team tiers in about a month, and then enterprise users will get it after that. I think they want to button up some of those error rates before they hand it over to the enterprise. However, none of you are getting it if you're in the European Economic Area, Switzerland, or the UK, and there's no timeline for the launch in those regions yet. A review from Professor Ethan Malik, who writes the One Useful Thing newsletter, said Deep Research provides valuable, sophisticated analysis, and he called it near PhD level analysis with solid undergraduate work from Google's version. He was comparing the two different versions of Deep Research. So this is what I've been saying, Rob, is we're going to see these things get more useful when they're narrowed, when they're in that agent stage of like, we just wanted to be good at a particular type of thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also think that they've got to work on the naming conventions. It's getting, we're almost going to need a model to help you determine which model you need to use based off of what you want. So, naming it the same thing as your direct competitor is kind of strange when you could have done something a little bit different. But I do think that as these things get more specific, they become more useful. So just looking at some of the reports and some of the writings that people have been talking about this, it's pretty good stuff that's coming out of this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are, latching onto the fact that it's got errors and it's not perfect. And really, you should be looking at how good is it. I don't want to have to check every citation when it does this because I don't know how much more time it's saving me. But that's why I thought Malik's review of this made me feel like, okay, this isn't something where I'm going to have to check every single time. It's pretty rare, but I can't just hand it over without reviewing it. And that's kind of true if you get it from a research analyst too, right? If you have a PhD student, do something for you, or an intern or something, you're going to check it over. Saves you some time, but you're going to check it over. So I feel like it's good enough for that kind of use.
It's good enough for that. You should always be checking your stuff over because you don't want to remove yourself from the thing you're doing. You're being assisted by these. We still need to think of these AI tools as tools. They're there to help assist you do the work, not just do all the work for you. So you absolutely want to make sure you're checking this stuff.
Yeah, I think of the way this would speed up my own work. I'm working on a lot of research for my book Synced. And when I use AI tools, I don't use them to write the book. I don't even use them to research the book. I use them when I'm like, I could find this answer in 15 to 20 minutes by doing a search and looking at some tabs and figuring out which one is the reliable one and then coming up with my answer. Or I can have the model do all of that tedious work and go, these are the three most likely. And then I can look at it and go, yeah, that's the one I was looking for. Or no, try again. You still didn't find what I'm looking for. And that speeds things up.
It definitely speeds it up. And even though these models take longer, they said it could take a half hour for it to get the information. It gives you the half hour to go do something else, to write additional chapters for your book. So even though it's not as fast as what we've become accustomed to, it's pretty fast. And it's and it's like I said, it's stuff that they've got to still work some kinks out. But by all accounts, it's giving us pretty good information that's coming out of these.
Yeah. Useful assistance is what it seems like to me.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to Chris Smith, Mark Gitson, Reed Fischler, and new patrons Dale and Jeff.
Yay, new patrons! There's some more we need to know today, so let's get right to the briefs.
The Seoul High Court upheld a lower court ruling clearing Samsung's executive chairman, J.Y. Lee, of fraud charges. This may still be appealed to the Supreme Court, but experts don't believe it has much of a chance of success. It ends one distraction that has been upsetting Samsung leadership and causing uncertainty about the company's future.
One thing Samsung did really well last year is with the invention of the Gorilla Glass armor, which surprisingly didn't get physically damaged until a level 7. However, as we work our way up the most scale of hardness, this time on Gorilla Glass Armor 2, we can see quite a few scratches at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7.
A smaller story along with this video from Jerry Riggs Everything showing the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra being slightly more scratchable than the S24 Ultra. It's possible that this was done to make it less likely to shatter. An Android Authority reports that a reliable tester called UX1122 said a rumored Samsung Trifold phone might be sold under the name Samsung G Fold.
The G Fold?
Yeah. Name it something. They like their letters.
The Z Fold, the G Fold, the G Fold. I don't know. It just I'm curious what the internet will do with that. That's all.
We knew it was going to be a letter. We knew it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. There's only so many letters. U.S. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon posted on Blue Sky Saturday that sources tell him that the U.S. Department of Government Efficiency has been given access to the U.S. Treasury's computer systems after a standoff that saw the Treasury's highest-ranking career official resign in protest. The system includes information about contractors with the government. Those contractors may be competing with companies owned by the department's head, Elon Musk. The system also controls the disbursement of Social Security and Medicare benefits. Access to the system, therefore, has historically been limited because of the personal information it contains. Reuters reported Friday that the department locked the Office of Personnel Management out of systems containing the personal data and human resource files of millions of federal employees. Wired has an article also profiling some of the young engineers, 6 in particular, between the ages of 19 and 24, who are working in the department. If you want to find out a little more about who's behind the Department of Government Efficiency.
It's hard to keep all Google's court cases straight, but one thing that is easy to remember is that almost none of them are over. Epic did win its case against Google Play Store policies, but Google appealed it and is in the U.S. appeals court in California on Monday, that's today, to try to overturn the jury verdict in Epic's favor. Among its objections are that Judge Donato let Epic tell the jury that Apple and Google were not competitors in app stores.
Yeah, they're going to try to go after the marketplace definition that Judge Donato used. He said the marketplace is Google Play, so he let Epic assert that, and Google's going to try to get the appeals court to go, no, the market is app stores, in which case you got to do this over again. So that's always how this stuff works, though. It's never over until the Supreme Court weighs in or somebody just stops appealing.
Technicalities.
XPeng Motors led Chinese EV sales in January with a 268% increase year over year to 30,350 deliveries in the month. The surge was led by demand for its new Mona and P7 Plus models. The rest of the list serves as an update on hot EV makers in China's domestic market. Li Auto, LI, was in second, followed by Leap Motor, Xiaomi, the phone maker, now number 4, number 4 in auto sales, and NIO, which you may have heard of. They do pretty well on the global market as well. Famous car maker BYD sells better outside the country, but is in China the second largest battery supplier. In fact, they supply the batteries to NIO. In other EV market news, India's electric two-wheel market grew 24% between December and January, with Ola Electric leading the way with 64% growth. If these start breaking out on the world scene, you buy a two-wheel EV scooter, it might be made by an Indian company. Overall, EV registrations across all categories in India grew by 11%.
Don't often think two-wheeled vehicles when I think EVs, but that market is massive.
It is. It's huge. And there's probably more advances in the EV battery technology for scooters than there has been for cars, even though there's a lot for cars too.
Bargain retailer Shein is facing headwinds across the planet. The European Union is about to begin an investigation into whether the marketplace allowed illegal goods to be shipped to the region. It's also facing the removal of an $800 threshold for tariff exemptions for goods coming into the U.S. starting February 4th. This doesn't mean all goods get charged a tariff, but it will mean that more inspections and delays of cheap goods will happen. But there was some good news. Shein is relaunched in India after a 5-year hiatus. To re-enter the market, Shein had to partner with Reliance, which will keep all customer data in India.
Yeah, two really interesting parts about this. One is India playing that we need to be control of the data and figured it out with a Chinese company. So there might be some parallels there with TikTok in the U.S. But that tariff on that removal of the $800 threshold is important because one of the ways Shein and others have done these cheap good deliveries that are so fast is like, you're buying a $2 thing, but they send it as an individual package, so it doesn't have to go through customs inspection. Now it does. So that just increases the cost and it increases the time it's going to take to ship that stuff.
It's definitely going to increase the cost and time, but it's going to decrease the utility because a lot of folks want you buy something from this store and you get it in 3 days. You buy it from this other place and now it takes you 3 weeks. That is going to be detrimental to their business model.
It's going to be detrimental to not just Shein though, right? It's going to hit Amazon and Temu and all the others as well because they are all going to have to face this $800 threshold for goods coming across the border. And let's be honest, a huge number of the goods you buy on these online retail platforms are coming across the border from somewhere else. For those keeping track of Microsoft's promise to publish games for Sony platforms, Forza Horizon 5 is the next example. A blog post on Forza's website says a PS5 version will launch this spring and include all the same content as you get in the Xbox and PC versions, and players will be able to cross-play between all 3 platforms.
I'm a fan. I've been playing it since it came out. The game is beautiful.
I'm excited about this, and maybe it made it into the lineup because of that, and maybe it's my own bias, but I love playing Forza, but I only have the PS5. I don't have the new Xboxes, so now I can get it.
Data from StatCounter indicates Windows 11 has finally risen above a third of Windows installs at 36.65%. Windows 10 still has 60.33% despite Microsoft warnings of end of life. Windows 7 has 2.4% of installs despite being unsupported for years.
That's a big number of companies still using Windows 10. I know the headline here is Windows 11 finally rising because of the end of life, but I feel like the limitation on the trusted platform model and making it hard to do the workarounds has artificially kept more companies on Windows 10 than there used to be. People stay on these old versions of Windows for a long time, but don't you think that restriction in particular has kept people on it?
It definitely has, because if you can't upgrade, you upgrade when you need new hardware. New operating system is not necessarily the driving factor. In fact, I would think that it's clear that it's not the driving factor for new hardware. And one other thing, 60.33% is a big number. But when you say it, that there are hundreds of millions of people still using Windows 10 and have no plans to get off of it anytime soon, other than it's going to be end of life this year, is a big deal for Microsoft.
Yeah, these are, large corporations still doing in-house support for a technically unsupported version. It's weird. The top game story of the day, though, is probably the reviews of Civilization 7, which launched over the weekend. While even the most enthusiastic reviewers stopped short of saying it's better than Civ 4, the well-beloved game's new mechanics do tend to be well-received.
We'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
A Swedish prosecutor has determined that cargo ship Vision did damage to a subsea cable leaking Sweden and Latvia last month, but that the damage was accidental and due to incompetence, not malice. Video showed a wave hitting the lock, causing an anchor to drop.
Those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper in the ongoing stories and follow up.
Continuing on from Friday's discussion with CTA CEO Gary Shapiro, Tom talks about his book and why a pivot isn't a failure and why failure isn't always bad.
Congratulations on your new book coming out, Pivot or Die. How many is this for you now? You're very prolific with the books.
Well, it's not only me. There's another person that's called Carolyn Posner who's helped me on this one a lot. But we have people. It's a CTA owns the book. I am the principal author, and generally, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things I want to say. A book is a unique way to get them out there. This is the fourth book. We had two ninja books and one before called The Comeback: How Innovation Will Restore the American Dream. Pivot or Die is a little bit different. It was really well timed given the surprise election results because we are all pivoting. We obviously pivoted during COVID. And I'm pivoting right now and actually answering your question. So it's focused on how we make pivots in life and business, and it gives some real life examples of actually literally dozens of companies in real situations, but also gives personal advice.
So one of the things that caught my eye in the book, a lot of people think of pivot as a failure. In the book, you talk about the success pivot, but also why even if there's a failure pivot, it's not a bad thing. Explain a little more for folks by what you mean by that.
Well, what I love about the United States and our culture is there's no culture that exists that's even close, maybe Israel and Canada, where your failure is a learning experience. But if you think about your own life, and I've raised this with lots of people, no one's pushed back on it, so I'm going to keep saying it's true. You learn from your failures. You don't learn from your successes. Successes produce false confidence, arrogance, and a lot of mistakes in judgment where you just think, well, I made this good decision before, I'll make a good decision in the future. Failure is when you, in a relationship, in a job, in a business, you are very successful. When I interview people for jobs, one of the things I like to hear about is if they've tried something and failed, especially a small business, because that is a school of hard knocks. And if you look at our most successful people, and I talk about this in the book, many of them have failed many times. I mean, I know there's a lot of bad things and good things about Donald Trump as president, but if you look at it, he has failed numerous times. I mean, he's gone and declared bankruptcy. He's done things. And, in a certain way, whether you hate him or you love him, he does get some things done in a way that, obviously people find disagreeable. And there's also, you do require a certain amount of independent thinking to succeed. And I would look at Steve Jobs, I would look at Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and I'd categorize them together. Is that in a sense, they're superhuman. They don't seem to have the same empathy gene that others may have, and they really don't care about what people think about what they say, or Steve Jobs didn't care. but they were very focused on getting the job at hand done and coming up with a way of doing it. And that's what I think is part of what I've seen in entrepreneurs and success is you have to be really, really focused. And I've met so many of them in the course of my career, whether it was Bill Gates or Michael Dell or Steve Jobs or others. And even the way they respond to me when I ask them to do something, I like a lot of them. There's many more names I can name, but they often say no to me, but they do it quickly because they're so focused on what they want to do, not what I want them to do. And I respect that.
Yeah, I think
I get a yes.
Jobs is a really interesting example of that because people think of him as a complete success, but he failed tremendously with certain product lines like the Lisa and even leaving Apple and going off into the wilderness. Do you have any other examples besides Steve Jobs off the top of your head of that failure pivot that ended up being useful?
Well, the failure pivot is true just about for almost any entrepreneur or innovator. I mean, there's so many different ones, whether it was the inventor of the Ring, the camera, which was rejected by so many, or there's if you look at, it's difficult to come up with and not name someone who's failed because usually they'll admit it. And I've read a number of Trump's books, and he certainly has had a whole ton of failures, but he's always swung for the fences too. So look, Michael Dell went public, then he went private, then he went public. Then, he's done a lot of different things. There's people who've also inherited, like Brian Roberts of Comcast, NBC, and not everything they did was success. I don't know if your audience is old enough to remember the NBC Olympics where they sold different colored things, and it was a dismal failure. But you know what? So what? You learn from your failure. If you don't risk things in life, you're not going to get very, very far, and you probably won't succeed because the world changes around you, whether or not you change. And that's especially true in the business environment. But it's also true in your personal environment and your relationships. You just can't keep doing things the way you've always done them. You always have to invest in, try new things, and grow. You have an obligation to do that to succeed because the world is going to change. As humans, we think the status quo is always worth protecting. Certainly that it's not only a political philosophy, it's a personal philosophy. But as we go through life and we grow up and, people get sick and they die and things change around us, or there's fires in LA, there's extreme weather, there's new politicians, there's new rules, there's new technology. We have to change to start winning in a way. It's not being strong. It's not being fast. It's adapting to change the quickest, which determines success. And that's what the book is about, is how you make those business and personal decisions. Now, the biggest decisions in life, I think, because I don't want to get the wrong message here, the biggest decisions, especially for young people that they fret over, are really not there. Like even what college you go to or what your first job is, not that important because you don't even know yourself yet. The big decisions younger people should look at is, do you commit a major crime? Do you do something fundamentally unsafe, drink and drive? Do you marry someone? Do you have children? Those are 4 big decisions, which are not irrevocable, but they have long-lasting implications. And the rest of the decisions, it's just you got to get to know yourself and learn. Every job you take, you learn something that's valuable about yourself. And that's why we tell our employees, we want them to do something outside the office besides just work. Because just working all the time is not what we want from our employees. We want them to be broadly diversified and to be able to innovate. And innovation is putting different ideas together for a better result. And that's something that we try to do as an organization. That's part of our culture.
Yeah, it sounds like leaving room for yourself to pivot and always considering that an option is what you're talking about, is being important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, just a big thank you for helping defend our rights to home recording all those years ago. I don't know if a lot of people realize how involved you were in that.
Yeah, I was the chairman of the Home Recording Rights Coalition at the age of 26. It was really a strange bit of luck, but I was managing people, believe it or not, like David Rubenstein, who now head the Carlyle Group, and Ron Brown, who headed the Democratic Party, and there was lawyers. And I just fell into this. I was an outside junior lawyer, and the client was never around. They made me the vice chairman, so I ran the group. And the issue was the legality of the VCR, which is the first technology that allowed you to change things in time shift and rent videos and determine what you watched when you wanted to watch it. And Hollywood fought us tooth and nail. They were the biggest lobby in Washington. We're the little guys, the weird ones, who thought, we're like the little dog fighting the big dog. We didn't realize how small we were. And we won. We won every step of the way, even arguing twice before the Supreme Court, Supreme Court, just by one vote, 5-4, established what we call the Magna Carta of the innovation world, which said a product is legal if it has significant legal uses. And that actually paved the way for so many things that we use today, not only the copying machine, but the internet itself, which some people tried to shut down as the world's largest copying device, and other technologies, camcorders, cameras, so many things we use today just naturally. Because there's a tension between the intellectual property owners and the innovators. But of course, the intellectual property owners that own the content and the copyright are different than the patent owners that own a lot of the technology. But we've managed to succeed and convince our government, more than any other government, that you have to favor innovation in everything you do. And that's why there's like this proposal before Congress that almost passed last Congress and could possibly pass again, is to mandate the ancient technology that we began over 100 years ago, the AM radio, that it be mandated and required to be put in every car. This dying radio broadcast industry is leaning so heavily on Congress that it's an embarrassment. And it actually, we're concerned because it also paves the way for future mandates of ancient technology. It's like the last railway car, that you put on the caboose. It had to be on trains for years, or having to have elevator operators or things like that. There's good intent, but boy, it's crazy.
Well, thanks for keeping up the good fight for innovation. The book is called Pivot or Die: How Leaders Thrive When Everything Changes. You can find it wherever you find books. You've got an audiobook version, you've got ebook version, print version, whatever people like. Anything else you should tell people about where to find what you do and where you are?
Well, if you want to learn more about the organization, it's the Consumer Technology Association, and we own and produce CES. We have a great website. CTA.tech and CES.tech, TECH. And you can learn a lot. We do so many different things involving safety, involving standards, involving public policy. We rank all the states and all the countries, how innovation friendly they are. And we also believe that innovation is going to solve the world's problems in food and hunger and clean air, clean water, healthcare. And that's what gets us to work every day. It's a great mission, and we believe in it.
Gary Shapiro, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can join in the conversation in our Discord. You got some thoughts about all of this stuff that Gary and Shapiro and I just talked about? Tell us in the Discord, which you can link to your Patreon account at patreon.com/DTNS.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared experience. Today, Tim is helping us understand.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for this. On Friday's show, Tom asked who reported Apple Watch battery swelling. I didn't report once, but twice. I had a Series 3 watch and the battery swelled and popped off the watch face, and Apple replaced it, and within another year, the replacement watch battery swelled and popped the face off, but both were reported to Apple. So I asked him if he's going to get in on any of that class action settlement money or not. I haven't heard back from him yet.
Yeah, and friend of the show, Tech Life Steph, she had the same thing happen. I remember when she actually said it actually popped the glass out of her Apple Watch as well. So that's a big issue.
Yeah, I have a Series 4 on my hand right now that has not done this. And I know the Series 4 wasn't subject to this, so maybe it's good. But it does make me think like maybe I should accelerate changing my watch. Big thanks to Gary Shapiro and Tim for contributing to today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. Don't forget, we also have a live version of the show that you can listen to on demand. DTNS Live with Sarah Lane, Roger Chang, myself, Robb's on it too. Find details on that and more at dailytechnewsshow.com. Talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.